For many Americans, work can feel like a hamster wheel. No matter how hard they run, it never feels like enough. Americans, on average, say they would need $520,000 a year to feel rich. And the more people earn, the
520 grand is a lot of money.
more they say they need to feel comfortable. Americans making under $50,000 felt they needed $157,000 a year to feel comfortable. Those making $100,000 or more said they would need $246,000.
When I was in middle school, a song came out called Mo Money, Mo Problems. And I think that
Right.
that's true. Your problems scale. You still are dealing with a finite number every month. Your worries, your anxiety, your budget scales to that. You still are dealing with a ceiling.
About 14% of all U.S. households make $200,000 or more every year, but many of them, dubbed Henrys or high earners, not rich yet, still don't feel rich. 62% of people with salaries over $300,000 a year struggle with credit card debt.
Earning doesn't actually make you feel rich, spending it does. If most
I think I see where she's coming from, but that is the dumbest thing that that someone could say. Earning doesn't make you feel rich. Spending it does. Okay, so when you spend it, you feel rich. I don't know. Maybe in my mind, it would be looking at my bank account, seeing the amount of money that I have in it would make me feel rich. Because if you spend 99% of your paycheck, how does that make you feel rich if you don't have anything to show for it? And some of those stats are pretty crazy, and it just shows no matter where you're at, there's always another level. And it's always easy to feel like you're not there yet, or the grass is greener on the other side. The reality is that most people feel broke because they outspend their income. That is just the reality of the situation. I spent the first 10 years of my career in financial services. I was a financial advisor. I got my investment licenses when I was 19 years old. I started out working at the bank and as a drive-through teller. And so I would get to see how much were in people's bank accounts. I was only 18 years old at the time. And I remember I'd see people pull up in, Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, like really nice cars to the drive-through. Because again, this was when, the drive-throughs were the huge windows. And then people would pull up there and I'd press the button and the drawer would come out, right? And then they'd put their money in or their deposit, and then I'd press the button, the drawer would come back in. So I'd see their car. And oftentimes people who had really nice cars, they had the least amount in their bank account. And okay, maybe you would argue, well, that's not their only bank account. Or maybe they keep the money in an online savings account or blah, 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 blah. Okay, keep in mind this was also 20 years ago. So this was back in like 2005, 2006. And a lot of people didn't. Most people kept their money in the bank account. And I remember this one guy, this older guy, and he would pull through the drive-through, and he would drive this beat-up pickup truck, but he'd have like $50,000 in his checking account. And I just thought that was crazy. Like, my goodness. And who knows? That could have been all of the money that he had to his name. But I started to see different patterns, and it would happen. I wound up getting a job as a personal banker. I did that for a year and a half. So, anyone that walked into a bank branch, I could see how much money that they had in all of their different accounts, or if they had credit cards or whatever it was. And it was quite shocking to me, quite shocking to see that people that look like they had money often did not.
people spent 99% of their paycheck, they'd feel quite rich. And it's the paradox here. When we're in accumulation mode, it's very difficult to feel rich.
It can be pretty easy for someone to feel like,
when you're in accumulation mode, it's easy to not feel rich. Again, I really don't agree with that. Okay, maybe you're being frugal, but any time that I felt like, I'm not able to spend like I want to, I would just pull up my bank account. And to see your bank account growing, wouldn't that make you feel rich? I don't know.
I'm making really good money, but I don't have a lot of discretionary income.
Earning more and feeling like you're still on a hamster wheel is what a lot of Henrys experience. And that's because they're not living within their means. They may have been living above their means when they weren't nearly making as much money. And now they're just continuing to add more and more and more.
I earned $300,000.
Yep, that's right. And I would see it all the time. People, like there's, and they call it income creep as well, I think. Income creep, but basically, and it happens whenever people get a raise, right? So let's say someone's making 100 grand a year, they get a raise, start making 120 grand a year. What they'll typically do, yes, I got a raise, now I can go out and spend and buy more stuff. Whereas with the people that wind up creating the most wealth and becoming, your average millionaire, they live below their means. So they get promoted. So let's say they make 100 grand, they're living like they make 70, and now they make 120, and now they're living like they make 80 or 85. And what happens is you have people that make 120 and they live like they make 200 or 150. God, it's so easy to try to do this whole keeping up with the Joneses. Check out what this lady says, though.
And I live in New York City. I definitely don't feel rich. I feel very lucky. I feel privileged, but I do not feel rich. I could not stop working right now. I have more money anxiety almost now than I ever did in my 20s. I am on a hamster wheel, and there's no question about it.
Gosh, that sucks. At making 300 grand a year. And look, there are realities to different cities and localities being super expensive. Another thing too, New York has, what is it, like an 8% state income tax, right? So compared to me living in Florida right now, that lady's making 8% less money because of that state income tax, and the cost of living is definitely absurdly high in New York. There were people roasting her in the comments about her not being able to, basically that she's not living within her means, which I agree. But there are definitely areas where it's a heck of a lot harder to live within your means than other areas. And so maybe decisions have to be made.
Henrys often don't feel rich compared to others. Many Henrys are cash rich and asset poor. So they're typically people under 40. They don't have childcare hours available. They're first-time home buyers in the housing market. They're paying off student loans early, hopefully. And their income usually hasn't hit a career peak. So they're very much in that not rich yet bucket, but they very well could be in the future.
Oh, I 100% feel like a Henry.
Marian Contreras was a professional composer, band leader, and pianist who started her virtual assistant business in 2016.
That year, I started to grow slowly, and I was suddenly earning more money than I had ever earned in my life. And I think the number was something like $35,000 by the end of the year. And I went, wow, this is really great. I can grow this.
She then expanded into a digital marketing consulting agency during the pandemic.
For the calendar year of 2025, we're just on track to make 1.4 million. We're hoping to get to 1.5 or possibly even 1.6. I'm anticipating my owner's draw to be anywhere between 300,000 and 400,000. Had a pretty successful career as a musician through most of my 20s. The thing they don't tell you about having a career as a musician in music school is that you can be playing Carnegie Hall, which I was, and I was making $15,000 a year. And I didn't realize how much freedom money affords you. Now that I see the kind of freedom that somebody who earns what I do or even more has, that's my goal. That is absolutely what gets me out of bed in the morning.
A lot of the high earners, not rich yet.
I would say just kudos to her. She went out and built a business to a $1.5 million business, and her situation is unique, right? It's not comparable to someone working a job making $300,000 a year, because she's building a business that's potentially an asset that she can sell. She continues to grow a team. One day she might be able to sell her business for $1 million, $1.5, $2 million or more. Whereas someone making $300,000 a year, you're renting your income when you work for someone else versus owning your income when you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner.
They're first generation wealth, so they still take their wealth into perspective against their family members or others in their community, and they realize how well they're doing. So they don't take it for granted. But I think what makes them feel not rich is we were told once you make six figures, all your problems will go away. You'll just have so much excess. And I think we know that narrative is not true anymore.
I would have thought back then that the amount of money that I have in the bank right now, I would be rich. I would have just thought, oh yeah, she's made it, and I don't feel that way. I know that I am on a hamster.
Part of that is inflation. I mean, yeah, I remember in the early 2000s when I was, just kind of graduating high school, if someone said they made six figures, 100 grand a year, then that was a lot of money, right? Let's check it out. Let's see for a second. What is 100 grand worth in, let's say, 2006? You would need to be making 160. So it's no longer six figures. It's like 6 figures and a half, right? Which is you need to be making 160 in order to feel that way. And inflation has caused everything to get more expensive. So of course people don't feel rich anymore. The average cost of a home in the US has gone up to the $400,000 mark now. It's absurd. People used to be able to survive on one income. One person could work in the family and support the entire family. And that has just completely gone away. And part of that, which maybe they'll get to this in this video, is the fact that they have continued to print money, print dollars, which causes inflation, and you devalue the currency. And wages have not gone up the same amount that inflation has. So people feel poor outside of the fact that, you know, they're living beyond their means. There's two core things that are in play here. So you're fighting two battles. The battle of living below your means and the battle of inflation. And the reality is, when you run a business too, my goodness, it's an amount of money that you thought was a lot of money before can seem like not a lot. I remember running a $90,000 payroll a couple months ago. It was like, imagine just seeing boom overnight, just seeing $90,000 float out of your account. So as a business owner, you got to get immune to big swings and fluctuations, and you start to get immune to large amounts of money.
Wheel with my business. I actually really love the hamster wheel. I love what I do, but I also realize that I can't stop.
So Henrys often don't feel rich compared to others. They work very hard for their money, but they also spend a lot more than the average person.
In a lot of ways, Henrys may be victims of their zip codes.
$100,000 in LA is definitely very different than $100,000 in Iowa. Someone makes $200,000 a year in LA. They're going to probably take home $140-ish. Rent for a one bedroom is going to be at least $3,000. Their car payment's going to be $700. Car insurance is going to be maybe $200 a month. Gas is going to be $200 a month. If you were to annualize that, that's $50,000 right there. The remainder is for all the other things. We haven't eaten yet. We haven't purchased groceries. We haven't paid for subscriptions to Amazon and Netflix. We haven't gone on vacation yet. We haven't purchased clothes yet. It can whittle away your discretionary income if you're living in an area that has a high cost of living.
When my business started to grow, one of the first things that I started spending more money on right away was food, because I don't have time to cook. I had more money than time. And so I started eating Grubhub 3 meals a day most days. After that, it became rent, because I hit $1 million a year in revenue. And I said, that's it, I'm moving to Manhattan. And so my rent doubled, and I suddenly was paying $4,000 in rent. What is very worth it to me is to live where I want to live. I was proud that I could live here. For about a year, I would walk outside my apartment and just look.
$4,000 a month in rent doesn't seem like a lot in New York, but you know that's part of it, right? Why someone who earns a high amount of money can feel broke is if you're renting. I mean, I bought my first house at 22 years old, $160,000 home, nothing to cry home about. What, that was in 2010, 2011. And so I was building an asset right away. It was building an asset in buying a home. If you're renting, you're probably going to feel broke, because you're literally just writing a check that you're never going to see again, as opposed to if you were seeing yourself building equity, you know, in your home.
Around and just be like, oh my gosh, here I am. So that was lifestyle creep for me.
Lifestyle creep is the common phenomenon of spending a little more money as you earn more. It can happen to
Okay, I said income creep earlier. It's lifestyle creep.
anyone at any income.
Lifestyle creep can really sneak up on you. You start earning more, and then you decide, well, I can buy more things. I need a second car. I need a bigger home. I need to go on this European vacation. I deserve this European vacation because I work hard for my money. The problem is, if you're not continuing to increase your savings at the same time, you are putting your financial future in jeopardy.
That shift.
Lifestyle creep is real, and it's definitely something that has impacted me as well, especially as I've worked hard on my business. Like, man, I deserve to buy X, Y, and Z. And recently I actually bought my dream car, a Ferrari F430. And realistically, probably should not have bought it, but I kind of have this rule with myself where as long as I force myself to save and invest a certain amount of money, I'm okay with whatever I spend for the rest of it. So I got all my investments on autopilot. This is something that, if you guys have ever heard of Ramit Sethi, he started the I Will Teach You to Be Rich brand. He has a podcast. I think he had a thing on Netflix. But he talks about that. Like, just set up the amount of money. If you're going to save 20% of your income, set that up on autopilot. And then now you don't have to worry about, you can spend literally every single dime of the rest of your income and not worry about it because you've got your savings and investing already set up on autopilot.
It happens everywhere in our lives, from the small purchases to the really big ones. Cars, houses, vacation, and most of these expenses are fixed.
Lifestyle creep impacts almost all tax brackets, but it can take different forms. One 2024 study found that when low and middle income households were given an additional $1,000, no strings attached every month, their spending increased primarily on basic necessities, such as food, transportation, and rent. However, when higher income households were given the same $1,000, they increased spending on both necessities as well as discretionary expenses, like Marie did.
I spend more on my hair. I spend more on makeup. I get my lashes done. I get my nails done. I think it's just something that comes with the territory.
Birds of a feather tend to flock together and their spending tends to be more aligned. If you make about $85,000, your friends probably also make about $85,000. So you're doing similar activities in the same economic bracket. Once you have friends that are making $200,000-$300,000 a year, your activities will change. The restaurants that you will eat at will differ and change. They're going to probably be a little bit more elevated. Your vacations are going to be more elevated. Your clothing is going to be more elevated. It's not necessarily spending irresponsibly, but they're spending a lot.
The only thing that's not accurate for me in that is clothing. I go straight to the clearance rack. I will pretty much only buy clothes on sale, and I now wear like our company t-shirts. But before that, these are the next level brand that we print on. I would just buy next level shirts from Amazon, and they were like $10 a piece, and I would just buy 10 or 15 of them, and I would just wear plain black, gray, blue t-shirts during the day. But yeah, this is so true about birds of a feather flock together financially. A buddy of mine recently invited me to a trip. He was like, hey, I'm doing this kind of guys adventure thing, and it's like a 4 or 5 day riding ATVs, riding like motorcycles, doing all this epic stuff. And the experience alone with the company, I think it was going to be like $7 or $9 grand, and that wouldn't have included travel and all that stuff to actually get there. And so this is basically going to be like a $10,000 trip. And that's part of why I said no, because I'm like, all right, if I'm going to take 5 days off of work and out of the office and spend 10 grand, I'm probably going to do it with my family, right? And which, I've done. So if I'm going to invest that level, probably going to do it with my family. But those are the sort of decisions. And it was like, man, do I really want to spend 10 grand on this thing that I don't know. I wasn't super stoked for. But that's the reality of what happens.
Aligned with their friend group and their community. That's why a lot of them oftentimes don't feel rich, because they're spending along with their friends.
Emotions are tied so tightly to what we do with our money. It happens to everyone. You get a raise, you're feeling great, you deserve to go out to dinner. In fact, you deserve to book that cruise. But the reality is that money was supposed to be earmarked for a bump up in your retirement savings, or money that you were going to put toward your child's education, or maybe you don't have an emergency fund, or at least not an adequate one, and the money should have gone there. When we allow ourselves to let our emotions overtake what we're doing with our money, we lose sight sometimes of what our goals are and how we have planned to meet them.
A Henry will sometimes look to the mega millionaires or the billionaires and wish that they had more, but it's really just that upwards comparison for more that keeps them stuck. More will never be enough at a certain point, and you have to decide what you have is ultimately enough and start appreciating all that you do have instead of fixating on all that you don't.
Powerful.
Experts say the best way for Henrys to start to feel rich and to get off the hamster wheel is by budgeting and planning for the future.
You can't really figure out if you're rich yet unless you know where you stand right now and where you want to go. You need to know your net worth. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not just for rich people. You have a net worth. What you own minus what you owe
Might
is
be a
your net
negative
worth.
net worth.
Everyone has one. Yours may be negative at this point, but you have to figure how to turn that around. Once you know your net worth, then you can start to build on what are your goals? What do I want to have in terms of my retirement savings, in terms of savings for college if you have children, in terms of emergency savings in case anything happens, how secure will I be?
Yeah, it's super crucial. I mean, this is like the basics of anything in life. Like, in order to get to where you want to go, you have to know where you are now first, right? You want to get in great shape and lose weight and get your body fat percentage down. Great. How much do you weigh now? What's your body fat percent now? One of the things I do actually learn from one of my buddies who is very successful, I track my net worth in a spreadsheet every single month. I manually, I know there are companies and softwares that do this. Every month, the first or the second of the month, I log in, I take about 30 minutes. I log into every single account that I have, business and personal, and I update a spreadsheet with my net worth. And I see all of my assets, all of my liabilities, and I input it. And I see what is the trend. Is it going up? Is it going down? Where are we? And it's a very powerful exercise, by the way. Very, very powerful exercise. So I definitely recommend that is something that you should do, just doing that every month, even just watching this video. Just the more aware you are financially, the more it will likely trigger you to make better decisions. Because what I learned being a financial advisor and having, worked with hundreds and hundreds of families in like their retirement planning and their spending over the years is that most people will sweep financial things under the rug and just, like ignorance is bliss, right? So if you don't know exactly what your net worth is, or if it's growing, if it's going up or down, or how much you're putting in your retirement or investment accounts, it's easy to cope with it. But as soon as you realize that, like, holy crap, if you made 200 grand this year and you only saved 15 or 20,000, you're like, crap, it triggers you to want to do something about it. And by the way, and then what this triggers is like sacrificing. Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to change your lifestyle in order to get what it is that you want? I remember when I got that first job at the bank, working as a personal banker, I remember I was making $35,000 a year. I was still living with my parents, and my car at the time, I didn't have AC. I didn't have heat in the car. No, I didn't have heat in the car. The car was just like all jacked up. So I went out and bought a cool car. I bought an Infiniti G35, and I just felt, so cool driving that car. It was a lot faster than my beat up Honda Civic. And about 6 months to a year before I bought my house, I knew that I wanted to buy a house. And so I was 21 years old. I sold my Infiniti G35. I downgraded to a Ford Fusion, and I had a bunch of equity in the car. I forget exactly how or why, if the car just maintained its value really well, I was making payments. And so I had like $4,500 of equity. Instead of rolling it into the car, I asked them to give it back. I wanted the cash out, and I took it. I paid off my credit card bill because I had some credit card debt at that time from investing into going to like personal development courses and stuff like that. And I used that. I did all of that in preparation to be ready to buy a house. And then I wound up buying a house and just scrape enough money for my down payment for the house. Eventually, I wind up selling that house, and the money that I got from selling the house, after having paid it off and it appreciating, I used that money to buy my second franchise location in cash. So these decisions stack, and the smart financial decisions that you make today will pay off down the road. And so ultimately, all of this around money and creating your wealth and living paycheck to paycheck, it all comes down to delaying gratification. That's all it is. If you can delay gratification, you'll be all set. And you can put yourself ahead of so many people financially, just delaying gratification. So one of the things my wife and I do, we max out our kids' college savings plans. Our kids have a lot of money in their college savings plans. For me, it's delaying gratification, because I think the maximum that you can contribute a year is what? I think it's like 18 or 19,000 a year right now. So every year since our kids have been born, we've maxed out each of their accounts. I mean, that's money that we could have put in our own savings or investing accounts, money we could have spent. But we're delaying that gratification, but in a more selfless manner for our kids.
Once you have significant emergency savings, enough to cover, say, 6 months of your expenses or more, you're going to start to feel rich. Surveys have shown that financial well-being is tied closely to emergency saving. And so if you know that you're not going to have to whip out a credit card, that you're going to be able to pay for the roof that needs to be fixed or the car that breaks down, you're going to feel rich.
I think wealth is often an emotional feeling. It's a mindset to feel truly secure and not to have to worry about finances at all. Feeling rich, it can feel much more about the bottom line and the dollar amount. So one is more about the tangible number in your bank account, and the other more is a feeling. Most people aspire to reach a level of wealth where they don't have to stress or worry about their finances or even about the future generations, to know that there's a cushion there.
One of the things
That's a really powerful point, and I think we'll end here, is that money is a mindset. Often, money is a mindset, because I know people that have a lot of money, or money can be a mindset. Obviously, at a certain level, there's the reality of like either you have the money or you don't. But once you are making a decent income, you're making over 6 figures, you have a house, you have a car, you have, these different things, you have some money in your savings. Money is mindset. I know people that have money and they feel broke. They live in constant financial fear. I saw it a lot as a financial advisor. We would have clients that had, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not, around $1 million, right? Like not rich, but their expenses were really low. Maybe their expenses were only, overall, like let's say $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And some of them had Social Security or they had a pension or whatever it was. They were continuing to accumulate money, but they would only keep their money in a savings account earning 3 or 4% because they were scared to invest their money because they didn't want to lose money. And or we have people that are just terrified to spend money, no matter how much money it is that they have. So a lot of it is emotional and psychological. And I can tell you that even as you accumulate bigger and bigger numbers, you will, the patterns of how you feel emotionally will typically continue until you change it. And it typically stems from your childhood and what you experienced around money growing up and how your parents talked about money. I grew up in a household where money was scarce and there was a lot of stress about money financially. And so those patterns continue to emerge for me no matter how much money I make, no matter how much I save or have accumulated. There's this financial, kind of like subtle financial anxiety. And I think a lot of people, you may be watching this going, yeah, I experienced that too. And so part of it is, just becoming a little bit more comfortable with that, realizing that you'll probably never fully get rid of it. But how you can help to do that is by making better financial decisions and knowing where you are now and knowing where you are next month. And if you're tracking it and seeing how your wealth is growing or not growing, that can certainly really help you a lot. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more reaction videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and we'll see you on the next one.